Liv, we're back.
We're back.
In studio looking legit.
This is so much better. This is so much better. I'm so happy to be here. Very happy to put this time aside to get out of my little office and be here with you.
It's so self-indulgent, isn't it?
This is our special time. Special time where we catch up with mics on.
Yeah. Therapy on the couch. Welcome.
We have your therapy today, but I want, before we get to that, I need to tell you about what's been happening in the toilet bowl at home.
Yeah.
Sorry. So if you have tiny ears listening or you just have a squeamish stomach, turn it off now.
Or you're eating dinner, just turn it off.
I don't know. So, yeah, Tommy, my 4-year-old, has had, I would say, a weak stomach for probably 4 weeks. So just hasn't been able, probably 4 weeks now, but particularly bad the last fortnight.
Yeah.
In that, hasn't been able to take in a whole heap of food, but he still is like happy, normal self.
Yeah.
But we've had a few accidents when we're out, and I'm talking about number 2s, not number 1s, which is very unlike him because he's got some, I think it just comes on, it's like an attack.
Yeah.
As in my language, and to all of my friends listening, an emergency. You all know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
We've had a few of those in our time.
Oh, yeah,
But anyway, the last 24, 48 hours, his poos have turned like Hulk, Hulk smash green. And it's somewhat terrifying because I haven't been faced with this.
No.
And what do you do when something happens to your child that you don't quite know what's going on? You got Dr. Google.
Dr. Google.
We actually did take him to the doctor a week ago because we're like, this is not normal.
Yeah.
And the doctor was like, it's probably just a gastro bug that is coming off, and felt his tummy and he's fine. And Tommy was like, no, I'm happy, and hasn't had temperatures or anything like that.
Yeah.
But now, last 40, this is really terrifying.
So you're going back?
So, I'm here. Here we talk about mental load. This is real time.
Yeah.
So I'm here. Mark is stepping up to the plate, taking him back to the doctor today. You can't help feel frustrated sometimes, when you go to the doctor and, Mark took him. Thank you, darling. Yeah. You are really shouldering the load at the moment.
Love you.
But I was like, did he ask the right questions the first time? Whose fault is it? Is it the doctor's fault or is it Mark's fault for not asking this stuff? So
we all think it, don't we?
I know, honey, you ask the right questions if you're listening. I know you do listen to this to just find out what I'm saying about you and our relationship. But so, I can't help but go, like last night, midnight, Googling, is he dying? Is this a start of a chronic illness? And Dr. Google tells me for the most part, the only poos apparently, sorry, why am I talking about poo? But I don't know, we're parents. This is what you do. This is what you do. The poos that you have to worry about are apparently red, black or white. They're the ones.
Wow, okay.
So hot tip in my Dr. Google research.
Yes.
I mean, disclaimer, might not actually be factually correct, but apparently that's what I learnt last night.
Right.
And they said green, quite normal.
Okay.
Because he's been so unwell. He's not, his intestines is not kind of absorbing anything. So food or anything he's consuming is just passing through really quickly, which the bile turns it green.
Right.
So anyway, still have to go to the doctor.
Hopefully antibiotics.
I just think it's a bacterial thing that has lingered. Maybe it's E. coli or something like that. Again, Dr. Google, who knows?
You're like, I'm basically a professional doctor at this point.
I'm an expert in all parenting things, as everybody knows. So we'll find out. But it's just posted. It's just kind of those one of the things. I will keep you posted. Like I do on my running. No update on the running PS, but I will keep you updated on the poo. But I sit here right now just going, as any parent does when their child starts to show any symptoms, that I just hope it's nothing more sinister. And thank you, Mark. Shout out for taking him back to the doctor.
Gosh, isn't the juggle real?
The juggle is real.
The juggle is so real.
Juggle is real.
Crazy.
Anyway, do you have any life updates you want to share before?
Hugely. I feel like I'm a little bit nervy about this episode.
Because the tables have turned.
No, I'm usually not the interview.
You have relinquished your facilitator, queen, pod, chair queen throne to me.
Oh God, yes. So
But this is raw. This is we're joking, but we're going to really get into it because I don't think we've spoken too much about your journey through pregnancy much on the pod.
No.
You've spoken to everybody else.
I really have. I've been on other people's podcasts talking about pre and postnatal depression and all of that. But then, and I think this is why I was like, actually, have our audience heard it?
Yeah.
And if not, let's, we should. I mean, there's a lot of lessons there, right? So,
let's start there.
Take it away, babe.
So I'm just going to start with a really simple one.
Yeah.
So you fell pregnant with Noah the first time. We have spoken on the pod that it was somewhat unexpected. Just kicking off there, do you think that falling pregnant unexpectedly had an impact on what was to come after? And you can start into that journey.
Yeah, look, I think massively. And, we've spoken about in the past, like if our diaries are, filled to the minute and don't change anything because all of a sudden I'm feeling out of control and I need to feel in control. So imagine I was annoyed at Jules the other day for, double booking us for something and that threw me. So can you imagine what unplanned pregnancy would do to someone of my personality type. And look, I want to start by saying I felt so grateful to be pregnant, and I understand there's a lot of people out there who are having, who have different journeys around falling pregnant, and so I really want to respect that. And I guess for myself, what happened was we were engaged. I was like, you know what, I'll come off the pill a couple of, maybe 6 months before I really want to start trying because I know my personality type. As soon as we start trying, I'm going to have graphs up and I'm it's going to be spreadsheet
ovulation trackers galore.
And writing everything. So I'm so intense like that. So I was like, rather than, be like, we are trying now, this is my new project, I'm going to just see what happens, 6 months prior. And it was probably a little bit longer than 6 months prior. So I went off the pill and we were trying to play it safe that way. And basically what happened was, that doesn't work, by the way.
This is bringing me back. I remember saying to you, that doesn't work, mate.
It's like when you come off
you
the
need
pill,
to go into some high schools and share that story. That method does not work.
So basically what happened was we'd planned our wedding. It was going to be in Greece, and we did the trip to Greece the year before the wedding to do all of our, research, choosing our venues, met the wedding planner. So during that trip, I remember feeling kind of a bit off, and we ended up in Paris after, and I love French wine, and we're there, and we're drinking the wine, and I'm just like, it's just not sitting right. It smells different.
Oh, I've got a recollection of you actually doing a pregnancy test in Paris, but perhaps the word positive was in French. And so you just thought, oh, I don't know what that word is, so I'm just going to chuck it in the bin.
So this was a big lesson. Okay, so we're in Paris. Everything's sort of, literally story of my life, just this stuff happens. So we're in Paris. I'm drinking the wine, feeling like it's not sitting right. And then Jules turns to me and goes, how about we get a pregnancy test? And I was like, no, babe, I'm definitely deficient in something. It's not pregnancy, trust me. And he's like, no, let's get the test just to be sure. So off I go downstairs, and we were in our Airbnb and there was no internet because, of course, that had to stuff up at that point in time. So anyway, we go downstairs, we get the pregnancy test, go back up, I do the test, and I see a one line, and then which means you're not pregnant, and then a really faint second line, super faint. And I go, Jules, look up Google. Let's see if there's a tiny second line, does that mean you're pregnant? And he's like, shit, the internet's not working. So we spent an hour trying to get the internet to work. It wasn't working. And then I'm trying to read the back of the pack, and I'm like, so
your high school French was not going to get you through.
I need a translator. So there I am, and I'm like, I reckon, Jules, it's fine. I reckon
if you want to believe something, at that point you wanted to absolutely believe. Whereas someone who is desperately trying to fall pregnant sees the faintest of a second line and goes, oh my God, my miracle, please, 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 please.
100%. And so I'm there, I'm like, we've just planned our wedding. We've paid cash for stuff in Greece because you pay cash so you don't have to pay the tax. So I've paid, the photographer a deposit. I've paid, and I'm like, I'm not pregnant. Yeah. There's just no way. So I was like, faint line, now we're all good. Off we go to have more cheese and wine. I'm smelling the cheese. I'm smelling the wine. I'm like, I must be deficient in that. Anyway, long story short, as we're flying back to Melbourne, I go, I'm going to lock it in with the GP, get myself an appointment as soon as we get back. I think it must be iron deficiency because, I mean, I know
you
my
were
body.
going through a period at this point too where you were, you had some health challenges that you had some deficiencies. So it was a very natural place for you to go
Exactly. So I go to the GP, I'm there and I'm like, look, I reckon I'm deficient in something. That's cool. Give me the vitamins and I'll kick on. And then she's like, how about we just do a pregnancy test? I'm like, don't worry, I've already done one of those. Not pregnant. All good. And she goes, would you mind just doing one more for me? And I was like, oh, God, what a freaking waste. I got places to be. I got there. All right, fine. Yep, no problem. I'm like, oh, God, I'm just such an inconvenience. God, wasting my time.
For me.
Get back into the room, give her the test. I'm like, see, I told you I'm not. Anyway, so can we talk about my vitamins? I've got places to be. And then she goes, no, I'm sorry. I'm already like half getting off the chair, like, all right, about to leave. And she's like, you are pregnant. And I remember just being like, I sat back down and I was like, but I can't. What do you mean? And the first thing I said was, but I'm getting married in Greece. She was like, you could still be pregnant again. And I'm like, no, but and then my whole brain is like, my calendar, like all the things. Like, I'm like, and she's like, and then she starts talking to me about like my options and stuff. And I'm just there going, this is the first time in my entire life that I've been so gobsmacked. This had not been part of what I thought would be the plan. So anyway, again, absolutely grateful. I'm having a baby with the person I love. Like, what an absolute blessing. But I think all of a sudden something in me just kind of clicked and I just went into stress mode as well. And so that I think kicked it off.
So let's fast forward. You've sorted out the wedding. What's the time period of your pregnancy that you perhaps started to feel that you had some mental health challenges?
Yeah, I feel like it got worse and worse. I think the more I settled in with the idea of, okay, now the wedding's happening, everything's happening, it's all fine. No, we're just going to have a baby at the wedding. Fantastic. And I can work with this. Yeah. And we're also happy. But then it was, okay, but I don't know anything about babies. I don't, what? Like a baby? I'm like, can other people, some of my friends just have babies first so I could like see what that looks like? It was, and we kind of led the charge a lot with our friends and being some of the first to have babies. So I was like all nervy that I'm not an A+ in being like this parent, right? But like I'm so proficient in other areas of my life. I need to be proficient in this. So there was so much inner talk and anxiety around the fact that I'm going to fail at this. This is not, and I don't know what I'm doing. And what if the baby screams all the time and I don't know about them? I don't even know how to change a nappy. That I think it sort of resonated in me not wanting to get out of bed. And it was kind of like, I can't deal with the day. This is all just too hard. And then, okay, I'll get up. And the only thing that got me up was work. I was like, I have to put the game face on for work. So of course, get to work, game face, let's do this thing, get home, full in a heap. And just like, I can't move. I can't be bothered doing anything. Put on pajamas as soon as I get home, get back in bed. And this is me. And you've known me for 20 years.
You never lie in bed unless you are forced. You just need to fill your sleep bucket.
Right? Like even when I'm sick, I get frustrated because I'm like, I've got things to do. I don't have time for this. I'm so timely. I'm so always on. That for me to do the complete opposite and be like, I just can't. And what's the point? And then I just notice it. So then Jules is like, okay, let's go see someone. You've got to go see someone. And it was funny because I didn't even identify it as I hadn't given it a name. I felt so guilty because I was like, I should be skipping on rainbows. This is ridiculous, Leonie. Like, snap out of this and getting so frustrated with myself, which doesn't help.
Did you feel like there was something wrong?
Something wrong with me that I'm not elated about the fact that I'm about to have this baby. Like, why am I so in my head about it? So I go and see someone, and then she actually said to me after, I ended up seeing her like every week, and she said, I can actually give you, she gave it a name. She was like, look, I think you've got prenatal depression and anxiety. We can give you medication if you would like, and it would ease that. And I just know there's so many friends of ours who are on antidepressants, and I know that they say it's so hard to come off. And I'm so scared to like get into that and then be worried that, and I'm a control freak as well. So I need to be able to control everything. So I'm like, what if I can't control how I feel? And then what if I want to come off them and I can't control how that looks? And so I just was like, no, I'll just do the talk therapy and all of that. But the one thing she did say to me at one point was, well, how is your partner dealing with this, right? And I was like, and at the time I was like, I don't care. This is about me. Like, what do you mean? I'm suffering. And then she said something for you to think about. Why wouldn't, bring him along to a session?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as a couple, you were very much in it together, and no doubt he was just completely worried about you, your baby, and the future, right? Like it's really, really, hard for all of you.
And I think it's one of those things like, and when you're in it, and for those listening who may be in that or have experienced that or seen a friend in it, I couldn't think outside of myself. So I was like, I can't worry about other people. I'm worried about myself here.
Really important thing to acknowledge.
Absolutely. And so anyway, so she said, why don't you bring him along to the next session? So off we go, both of us to the next session. And he's always just been that like, I've got you, Leonie, it's all good, smiley face. I could tell that it was impacting him, but he was trying like not to show it to me. Comes to the session, we sit down. I'm already like, oh, this is so lame. Why is he here? Like, I was like, this should so be about me. And then she turns to him and says point blank, so Jules, can you tell me a little bit about your experience at the moment and how you're feeling? And he looks at her and he actually bursts into tears. And he goes, because no one had turned to him and said, how are you feeling? Yeah. And he goes, and I remember, and this is so bad, but it goes to show the state I was in. I remember looking at him as he's crying and being like, why are you crying, mate? Like, mate, you've got you don't have a baby growing inside you. You know what you're doing. Like I was so angry and just in my world. And I look at that now and like if Jules was crying like now at, in the state that I'm in, I would straight away get emotional. But I was so in this haze of just like, ugh. And so then she started talking to him and he was getting emotional. And she said, well, ensure that you're leaning on friends and family and things. And he's like, I've told a couple of close friends and all of this. And I was just sitting there like half listening, half going, I wonder what I'm going to watch on Netflix tonight. Like I was just in a different world.
It just shows you the depth of almost kind of like a paralysis almost of your brain. That you are just in your own channel, unable to save yourself. It's funny, exactly. If Jules was to show that same emotion about something that was going on in his world or your relationship right now, as you said, you'd just be there instantly.
Right.
That's the most telling example of how unwell you were.
That's right. And I'm so empathetic and I'm so, normally, right? And so I'm in this world. And so basically the guidance she gave us as a couple was for the partner, ensure that you've got people that you can speak to. Also, think about what you did enjoy doing because I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do anything. And that's so weird for me because as you know, as we both are very social people and I was like just wanting to be in my pajamas all the time. And so she said, what about maybe just going to a restaurant, because that's a thing we enjoyed doing. That was one thing that we mentioned to her. Okay, even if it's the local Thai place down the road, once a fortnight, like can you commit to that? Like let's try to start getting you out of the house and back to the things that you like. And I remember the first time we went to the Thai place, and Jules was insistent on it because, the therapist told her we had to go. And I'm like, so lame. So we're there and I'm sitting there and I've ordered my meal and I'm feeling a bit gloomy. But then the meal comes and we have a glass, he had a glass of wine and I didn't have a cup, but we're there, and I was like, this is kind of feeling like real, like normal life. I
feel
again.
Like a bit more like myself.
Yes, like I'm in an environment that I used to love being. I love going to a restaurant.
Is that also so obviously was like go and do something as a couple, and was it also do other activities that perhaps bring you or spark some joy? Like was it going for a walk or sitting in the sun or reading a book?
Speaking to a girlfriend or, the things that you usually would do, bring them back in even if it feels forced. And it did feel forced the first 10 minutes I was sitting at that table. But then by the end I was having a good laugh with Jules. And I was like, wow. And we just kept trying to, do things like that to bring us back to pre-anxiety, depression times.
Okay. So beautiful Noah arrives on the 13th of December. Am I making this up?
18th of November. You are, but that's all right, babe. We'll roll
He's not my godson. The other one is. But little gorgeous Noah arrived. What was that feeling like for you? Still struggling with prenatal And was postnatal then a challenge for you too?
Yeah, so they say it's quite likely that if you have prenatal that you will, I mean, the statistics are quite high that you may have post, and that's what everyone was a little bit concerned about, and hence they were like, how about you get on antidepressants now so it doesn't get even worse. For me, as soon as I gave birth, I was like, oh my gosh, I felt such a relief. I was like, all this anticipation of being like, I don't know about babies, I don't know what I'm doing. I had the baby there and I could do something about it. I was like, cool, teach me how to do the nappies, teach me. And I went into I can do this. This is a new project. I could, and I got into that mode. And I was like, I'm healed. I'm cured. I'm so much better. And I was so excited, and you know what it's like, you have the baby, all the family comes. It's like the best time in my life. So, amongst like trying to breastfeed and all the other stuff, I was like,
that wasn't my memory. Okay.
And the crying and all of that. But, fundamentally, I was like, I now no longer want to just lie in bed, and I can't because I've got someone else to deal with. Who's relying on me. But then after a couple of weeks of just when the excitement died down, I just realized rather than sort of sad and kind of, depressed, I thought this wasn't depression. And my reaction was anger. Yeah. I was so angry. So like if you said something and I didn't like it, I was just like, like what, and irrationally angry to the point where.
So not necessarily about you or like it could have been something work.
It could be, yes, anything. Yeah. Like I remember at one point.
Could be someone not giving way in the traffic and you'd just be like, that was me this morning actually. So maybe I need to do some inward focus. But it was you were
like
just really triggered.
So triggered. Yeah. And my poor mother, like she said something to me, and my parents were so supportive. Yeah. My whole family were, particularly in the early days of me having the little one. And she'd say something and I'd just fly off the handle. Like, and, obviously they're like, oh, it's okay. Like she's just had a baby, people would tiptoe around me. And I was like, oh, I've got it all under control. Nothing's wrong with me. But then I find out, a year later that anger is actually a form of, depression. Like it's another way of, and because and I think the way you can tell it's depression and not perhaps just a little bit of a tough period, which we all have, particularly when we have children, is it's consistent. Yeah. And for the first probably year, and I can mask it with friends and things, and in certain situations it doesn't come up. But when I'm my true self, I was so angry, probably for the first year. And then the anger started dissipating. And I don't know if it's because all of a sudden I was like, I feel like I've got this parent thing a little bit more and I'm on top of it.
Yeah. Is this so much about the pressure that you put on yourself to get an A+?
Yes, potentially.
And when things, as we all know, when we have children, things don't go to plan. You can't plan children. They have their own little schedule, 100%. Which was really challenging, I know, for you.
Yes.
Do you think that was really what kind of pushed you in that postnatal space?
Potentially. I think, and they do say statistically the type A's, the really like regimented, non-flexible characters can be a little bit more susceptible to these things. Yeah. And I look at my friends and the ones that really struggled when they first had children, and a lot of them are the type A, because you don't have any flexibility. Like you tell me that a meeting is cancelled and I'm like, I need to just adjust to that. I'm not flex. I'm not cash. Like if I was more cash, I'd be like, oh, baby pooed while we're in the middle of a shopping centre. Yeah. That's chill. Yeah. I'll deal. Whereas I'm like, oh my God, did I bring the napkin? Like it's all so like intense. I'm such an intense character. And I think that's why, like the frustration of not understanding what I was doing, the frustration of all of it and just my personality. And I've always dealt with anxiety, as you know, throughout my entire life. So that's a thread that obviously when you have children can spike, and it was just crazy. So I guess during that period, it was just anger. And for those listening who might be sitting there and being like, I'm consistently angry. It's not like, today I'm having an angry day, like all the time. Like,
every little thing from morning to night.
That's something to look at. And again, I didn't realize I even had any problems till after the fact. And then I went, oh shit. And then interestingly, for the second time around, I still experienced prenatal. It's not that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing now. It was just this feeling.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Was there any, like, did you see somebody during your pregnancy with Charlie knowing that your susceptibility or risk was higher?
Yes.
Did you do anything different?
Yeah.
Are there some suggestions that you've got that you learned through that period for the audience too?
Yeah. Well, straight away I had the psychologist weekly and I just knew the signs to look out for. I think I straight away was like, well, we've got to keep living our lives. I can't fall. And also I had a baby to look after. So I didn't have the luxury of sitting there watching Netflix, for hours on end. And I was like, just keep busy. Because I know that if I keep busy and I'm doing the things, I know I can combat it a lot better. So, that I still experienced it. And I wonder if it was literally like, I don't know, chemical imbalance or whatever. Like there's things that you can't even control. So you can do all the things.
Oh my God, the hormones are real.
Like
there are things that are absolutely out of your control, and medication for those who are really struggling is a very good solution that should absolutely be considered by you with your practitioner.
Oh, 100%. So, and similarly after the fact, the anger was there after having my second child, and I knew what it was and I could name it. It's almost just acknowledging it kind of takes the heat off it a bit. But when you feel out of control and that you don't have control over certain emotions that you've got and you think you're crazy, that just compounds it. Yeah. So it was a really, so I guess, tips for those who might be experiencing it or who might have friends that are experiencing it, try to remember the things that gave you joy and try to do those things as much as you can. That was critical.
Force yourself to do it.
Force yourself, because you're not going to want to.
Make someone come and pick you up. Rather than go and meet someone, ask that friend to come and pick you up.
Yes.
And get out of the house, get out of the bed, put on some makeup, make you feel a little bit more like yourself.
Listen to resources. I started the podcast after having Charlie, because I was like, I want to hear other people's stories of struggle in parenthood, and then also how they overcame them, right? Because this is a real journey, and I'm like, I'm not the only person who would have experienced these emotions. So tap into resources, tap into the external experts if you need. Don't be afraid to, if you need to seek medication or whatever it looks like based on your circumstance, then, there are things out there that can support you through this. But it was a pretty hairy journey, and one that I'd never anticipated, because growing up I was always like, why would I get I mean, again, respectfully, but I was like, I wouldn't get depressed because I'm such a I don't have time to lie in bed. I've got too much on, and I just didn't really realize that it can just take you over.
Well, it doesn't discriminate, and I think that's what you have proven today. Mental health, it can happen to any of us, will happen to all of us at some point, and you just have to know where to go to ask for help. So I think you've shared that really beautifully today. Thanks for being vulnerable with your audience. Thanks for letting me take the lead this time. I mean, you can have the throne back now, but hopefully I know your audience got a lot out of that. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll pop a few details in the episode notes for resources that really supported me as well, to help others out there too. Thanks again, Liz.
See ya.
See ya.